Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Seiben here for the Aether Hub, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we'll be looking at the third chapter of Amonkhet lore. At this point, the Gatewatch have had a mixed experience on the world ruled by Nicol Bolas, even though it appears the Dragon Planeswalker himself isn't currently on Amonkhet. First, they discovered that a majority of the plane is nothing more than hot suns, wastelands, zombies, and hungry worms. But then they stumbled upon the magically protected city of Noctamon, a thriving bastion of life with citizens that fully devote themselves to the gods found on Amonkhet. Although most of the Gatewatch are understandably cautious towards the idea of gods probably under the whims of Nicol Bolas, Gideon Jorah seems to be all about that life. Yet even this paradise isn't as good as it first seems, as rebellious and defiant screams can be heard ever so often. It seems some here believe the gods are a lie. There's obviously a lot more going on here. Nissa Revane, the elf planeswalker so connected to the mana of worlds, has a dream where she communes with the very spirit of Amonkhet, a god in its own right. When she first arrived, the laylines of the plane felt so faint and weak, as if the world itself was dying. As if Nicol Bolas was killing it. The spirit reached out to Nissa. She witnessed a deep, underground place, catacombs, silent but seemingly sacred to Amonkhet. The world spoke to her. I lived once. He could never truly kill me. I abhor death. Those that die will always return. This is the curse of wandering, my gift. The dead were sent here for me to keep them safe from rot. This once was my most treasured place. I protected the vessels to keep their souls alive, and he took them. Please, he took them all, corrupted them all, and my guilt. I could not protect them. In a shudder, Nissa awoke. In this dream, she learned a lot about the world. It was ancient, but this devastation was new. It must have only occurred just a few decades ago. Nicol Bolas had stolen something precious from Amonkhet, something that was killing its very spirit. Needless to say, there were a lot more questions than answers at this point, and Nissa needed to catch some air. She grabbed Chandra while she was still half asleep and walked out into the hot sun. The city of Noctamon was alive even in the breaking dawn. People were out running, training. It's all they seemed to do on this plane. And why not? Even if they didn't have the gods' trials to go through, the anointed zombies took care of everything else. In fact, Nissa and Chandra were seemingly the only ones not performing some sort of exercise, a situation I myself understand completely. Her vision of the world's spirit left Nissa weak and nauseous in the staggering heat. She took a seat to catch her breath. Chandra grabbed a cup from one of the mummies wandering about the grounds, using it to give Nissa a few cold sips of water. She was very thankful that her friend could join her. They talk, and things get a little awkward. Chandra almost expresses her feelings towards Nissa, yet the elf doesn't seem willing to reciprocate those exact feelings right now, cherishing their friendship above all else. It's clear that Nissa still has a long ways to go in terms of building bonds and trusting other people, but at least they're still very close companions. Sorry Chandra, you're kinda friend-zoned. Something else I'm familiar with. They continue to explore and come across a huge sphinx sitting above on a perch. They understood the nature of these creatures and their vast knowledge they tend to store, so asking this one questions could prove useful. Yet even the most simple of greetings is met with utter silence. Confused, the pair are approached by a woman, seemingly much older than the other people they've seen around the city. She dressed in ornate, colorful clothes, adorned by gold accessories. She seemed pretty important. She's another vizier, like the young man Temet they met when they first arrived. Yet, unlike Temet, this woman, Hapatra, seemed warm and inviting, understanding that they were travelers, but not persecuting them for it. Apparently, all Sphinx on Amonkhet have taken a vow of silence until the God Pharaoh returns, Nicol Bolas. So talking to them would yield nothing. Hapatra instead seemed more than willing to answer their questions. They discussed the Anointed, how they serve to allow their way of life and training possible, saying that so long as the body is whole, the spirit will live on. Yet in her vision, Nissa saw scores of mummies in catacombs, completely safe from decay. They weren't always servants. She then went on to talk about the trials, suggesting they perhaps talk to one of the gods, namely Kefna. She figured that the god of knowledge probably would have some answers for him. Hapatra said their gods are loving and generous. Surely they'd share their wisdom, just as Ronus had taught her all about poisons in her youth. If they wanted more info on the trials, they needed to act fast. The God Pharaoh's return was not but just a few days away. They hadn't much time to prove their worth. In Hapetra's words, Nissa and Chandra both likened them to the girl who was arrested just the other day. They both talked about the hours, only Hapetra believes it's a time of great prophecy and fulfillment, while this girl claimed it was all a lie. The hours would soon be upon them, and with it, Nicol Bolas. They needed to find out more. They needed to find the girl that was arrested. Nissa reached out through the weak laylines in an attempt to feel her rebellious heart, but it was incredibly difficult to pinpoint anything here on this world. Luckily, she did manage to feel a weak pulse coming from a nearby monument, a fiery heart, but fading. They walked between the rugged stone and another building down a thin alleyway. Nissa was face to face with etchings, markings ancient and with foreign meaning. Yet, above some of the older marks were obviously newer ones, the horns of Nicol Bolas. No matter where she found them, they didn't share the same old age and grime as the other markings. They were put on later, much later. Nicol Bolas hasn't always been here. He didn't create this world, he corrupted it. Under the ever-present markings of the horns were the gods of Amonkhet, much older still. Yet, as she counted, Nissa found that there were at one point 8 gods, not just the 5 they were aware of. What had happened to them, and why didn't anyone seem to remember such titanic figures? Near the end, they came to an opening, lined with boxes shaped and made to look like people, sarcophagi. The girl they were looking for was trapped in one of these boxes, but the exact one was hard to read. Yet, before they could investigate further, they heard a familiar voice, Gideon Jura. Yet this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a god, the god with a golden cat for a head, the one so interested in Gideon, Oketra. Like the god had done with Gideon when they first arrived, Oketra spoke to Nissa secretly through telepathy. "You spoke with the land, Nissa Revane," she said. "Yes, your world is dying and afraid." The god didn't answer back, only twitching her ears back for a slight moment. A loud voice bellowed out for all to hear. Oketra spoke to all now. The sarcophagi are forbidden to approach, asking the pair politely to please let them be. A sentiment Gideon echoed. Nissa and Chandra didn't want to get on the bad side of a god, or Gideon for that matter, so they all left the monument site together. But they'd be back, for the answers lie within one of these strange boxes. Again, Nissa reached out to Oketra, asking in angst what had happened to the other 3 gods. Oketra simply replies that she has no memories of before, not even knowing exactly what before was. Chandra notices a cartouche around Gideon's neck. Apparently he was undergoing the trials of the gods as Oketra's champion, having completed her own trial earlier in the day. Chandra is furious. This whole plane was bad news, ruled by Nicol Bolas, and Gideon's off completing trials? Trials none of them even fully understand, wasting time? But Nissa was more open-minded to it. She knew Gideon was doing this for personal reasons they'd never fully understand. Whatever it was, he needed it. The day was over. A lot was learned, yet still questions remained. Here they are on a plane dying, corrupted by Nicol Bolas. 8 gods once ruled here, yet only 5 remained. And those gods have absolutely no memories of before the days of Bolas. Bolas has only been on Amonkhet for a few generations. The people are all so young in the city, none could remember a time without the God Pharaoh. What was going on? They needed answers. So, they now seek the Keeper of Knowledge, Kefna. And there you go guys, the 3rd story of Amonkhet lore. Obviously we had a lot of big revelations here. For me personally, it's Nissa's rebuke of Chandra's advances. Now, Chandra's relationship with Nissa has always been a little under fire. Was she into her? Was she not into her? How was Nissa gonna react? But from this story, it seems pretty clear. Chandra's kinda expecting something more than just friendship, but that's all Nissa wants right now. Of course, we also learned that Amonkhet was once home to 8 gods and not 5, leaving us even more confused than before. What happened to him? And of course, Gideon's off praising the gods and completing their trials because, you know what, he has a really bad complex from all the way back at Theros. Anyway guys, let me know what you think about this story in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, consider supporting the hub here on YouTube by giving this video a like and subscribing for more awesome MTG content. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time here on the Aether Hub.